I call this meeting to order. This is meeting number 45 of the Standing Committee on Finance. Orders of the day pursuant to Standing Order 83.1, continuing with pre-budget consultations 2014. Colleagues, we have two panels again here with us today. We have 5 individuals presenting the first panel. First of all, we have Clean Energy Canada. We have Ms. Marin Smith. From the Canadian Water Network, we have Mr. Gord Lambert. From the Forest Products Association of Canada, we have Ms. Catherine Cobden. From the National Angel Capital Organization, we have Mr. Robert Douglas. And from Prospectors and Developers Association of Canada, we have Mr. Charles Beaudry. Welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for being with us here this afternoon. You have 5 minutes maximum for your opening statement, and we'll begin with Ms. Smith, please.
Thank you for the invitation to present here today. I'm the Director of Clean Energy Canada, and I'm here with my colleague Claire Demers, our Senior Policy Advisor based here in Ottawa. Clean Energy Canada is working to accelerate Canada's transition to a clean energy economy. And when I say clean energy, I'm talking about renewable energy sources like wind, solar, and hydropower, as well as innovation in the way we consume energy. So I'd like to make 3 points in my comments to you today. First, the clean energy sector is now very big business around the world. With almost $250 billion invested globally last year, this is no longer a boutique or a niche sector, and Canada needs to take note of this rapidly changing industry. Second, Canada's clean energy sector has huge potential. We're producing both clean electrons and the clean energy technologies and services that are increasingly in demand around the world. And third, the federal government could be doing much more to support the clean energy sector in Canada. I'm going to start with the big story. The world is making a transition to clean energy at a pace that would have been tough to imagine just a few years ago. A few facts help to illustrate that shift. First, investors directed $207 billion to clean energy projects in 2013, which is coming close to the amount invested in fossil fuel power generation. Second, in the past 5 years, the price of a solar module has dropped, I should say plunged, by 83%, and this is a game changer for global solar uptake. Third, there's now 144 countries that have some form of renewable energy targets, and mainstream brands like Walmart, IKEA, Starbucks, Google, and Facebook have committed to be powered 100% by renewable energy by 2020. And finally, the big headline from China used to be that they were building a new coal-fired electric plant every week. Now, they're building a new windmill every hour. 2013 was the first time China invested more money in new renewable energy capacity than it did in new coal and gas-fired power plants. So this growing global commitment to clean energy has significant implications for the competitiveness of Canadian businesses. Fortunately, Canada is already well positioned for success in the clean energy economy. Analysis from McKinsey, done for the Natural Resources Canada, found that our country has significant clean power potential. We're already the home of the world's third largest hydropower generation capacity, but McKinsey also found Canada could take a lead in sectors like solar power equipment, marine power, and energy-efficient buildings, amongst others. So it's not like we're starting from nothing. Canada saw well over $6 billion invested in clean energy last year, moving us from 12th to 7th place among the G20 nations. But it's essential to emphasize that in recent years, this investment has been driven by provincial, not federal leadership. So while provinces have jurisdictions over electricity generation, the federal government could make a huge contribution by actively and strongly supporting the growth of the clean energy sector. And in addition, clean energy is a core climate change solution. Thus, progress in the clean energy sector could help the federal government meet the national climate target it adopted for 2020, a target that we're not on track to meet. So we recommend 2 areas of investment to support clean energy in Budget 2015. First, building on progress in previous budgets, add 3 more types of clean power technologies to Capital Class Allowance 43.1 and 43.2, which are designed to support clean energy directly. The 3 types would be first, building integrated photovoltaics, which replace traditional building materials like shingles and windows with solar materials. Second, investments to make buildings solar panel ready. And third, power storage technologies that help close the gaps when the wind isn't blowing or the sun isn't shining.
1 minute.
Our second recommendation is to create more demand for clean power indirectly by providing a rebate to Canadians who buy an electric car. This will also have direct benefits for the growing number of Canadian companies involved in the production and servicing of electric vehicles. Electric cars are significantly cheaper to operate than conventional cars over their lifetime, but they cost more upfront, and rebates help reduce that sticker shock so Canadians can afford to drive cleaner cars. Because the Government of Canada likes to be harmonized with the U.S. on vehicle and climate policies, as was reiterated by Minister Glulik last week, we recommend matching the current U.S. federal rebate, which offers up to $7,500 for the purchase of an electric vehicle. And it's clear the American rebate is working. The U.S. has over 220,000 electric vehicles on the road today, while we have under 9,000, far fewer even on a per capita basis. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. Ms. Smith, we'll go to Mr. Lambert, please.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here today. My name is Gordon Lambert, Executive Advisor for Sustainability and Innovation for Suncor. I'm grateful for the opportunity to appear before you today on behalf of the Canadian Water Network, with whom I've had experience both as a board member and as a partner on research. We are here to present how a federal investment of $60 million over 10 years will enable application of a successful model to achieve benefits across Canada in areas where buy-in across sectors and decisions based on sound science are critically important. CWN's experience has shown significant uptake of its approach of bringing together cross-sector stakeholders around an apolitical table to address key water management issues. Based on that experience, the federal investment is forecast to attract another $120 million in investments from private and public partners, which will generate many times that in socioeconomic benefit and lead to self-sustainability of the network within 10 years. In my role as a senior sustainability professional, I have seen clear evidence that water is critical to Canada's socioeconomic fabric, and managing it well provides Canada with a unique competitive advantage. Canada's agriculture and resource industries are valued in the hundreds of billions of dollars, and the global water goods and services sector is valued at over $300 billion. Innovation to optimize these sectors not only sustains quality jobs, but has a multiplier effect into other sectors like energy, infrastructure, and engineering. Capitalizing on Canada's water opportunities could result in improving both water use and quality in the Canadian agri-food sector to more effectively and sustainably supply a growing domestic and global market, finding solutions that fit both technically and culturally in ensuring safe drinking water in small communities and for Aboriginal Canadians, enabling communities to adopt financing, technical and social innovations that allow them to deal with infrastructure deficits and increasing costs and uncertainties resulting from events like floods and droughts. And fourthly, moving decisions forward on water management needs in government and the private sector to unlock the socioeconomic benefits of oil and gas development, including hydraulic fracturing and oil sands in socially acceptable ways. CWN is uniquely positioned to empower Canada to take advantage of these water-related opportunities. It cuts across all sectors and stakeholders and is focused on generating practical solutions based on credible science. As a national, apolitical, not-for-profit, its fundamental strength lies in its objective, science-based approach, not owned by any single government or industry sector or interest group, but resulting in benefits to all. CWN is already a success story for the federal government. It has developed its end-user-driven consortium model over 14 years as a federally funded network of centers of excellence, demonstrating the ability to attract partners to collaborate and co-invest, attracting over $45 million during that period. The opportunity for the federal government now is using this model to move key priorities forward, building on our success and relationships that we've achieved to date. CWN is already applying this new model successfully. In our Municipal Water Consortium, municipalities, industry, and other levels of government are investing millions in research to advance priority issues. On top of that, municipalities representing over 14 million Canadians see the role of CWN as being so critical they've committed over $700,000 in 2014 alone to support its operations. CWN is also developing a hydraulic fracturing and water consortium, an area extremely important to Canada's energy development, where advancements in knowledge would significantly move forward both the industry and its provincial oversight.
Okay, 1 minute.
Federal investment through this proposal would support critical research to address questions of groundwater protection, governance, wastewater handling, and landscape impacts. The proposed investment will enable the federal government to apply this model going forward to ensure that innovation leads to success in areas in which it's needs most to catalyze progress. Government and industry invest significant funds in important complementary programs to support research and commercialization opportunities, but none fill this critical cross-cutting, apolitical, national niche to support broad social policy and dialogue linked to economic success through innovation in water management. I thank you again for your consideration today and look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lambert. We'll go to Ms. Cobden, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. FPAC has made an official submission, so I will keep my comments brief, but will flag that we do have a more detailed submission at your disposal. It is my distinct pleasure to be here today on behalf of the Canadian forest industry, an extremely important contributor to Canada's economy and in particular the rural economy. Our industry, I will remind you, is a global export powerhouse. We send product to over 187 nations worldwide, but we're also the economic engine of hundreds of communities across the country that are almost entirely dependent on our existence. We employ 200,000 Canadians, and we have a significant more indirect Canadians that benefit as well. You all know that the forest industry has faced significant challenges, and in response we have retooled and we have charted an interesting, exciting future direction. Our sense of confidence is supported, underpinned by an amazing and impressive innovation system with a remarkable array of new innovations in new products, new markets, and new processes. We have had the opportunity to describe our vision and our innovation agenda with this committee in the past, but I will remind you that the potential in front of us is great. By the year 2020, our aspirational goal is to employ an additional 60,000 Canadians, add an additional $20 billion to the Canadian economy, and further reduce our environmental footprint by 35%. The government and all of our partners have been instrumental in supporting our pathway of change, and this includes an array of support from the Trade Post to the Investment in Forest Industry Transformation Program and the federal provincial industrial collaboration in a research powerhouse called FP Innovations. And I will note that Pierre Lapointe, the CEO of FP Innovations, is here with me today, just behind us. Our official submission highlights 3 important suggestions for your consideration. Today I'm going to use your time to dive deeper into one of them and just mention the other 2 very briefly. Our forest sector has a strong desire to fill our innovation pipeline with more ideas from colleges and universities to really leverage the brain power for this transformational journey that Vision 2020 is articulating. To date, we have been the direct beneficiary of research capacity in 26 Canadian universities supporting this transformation. It's been the direct result of an interesting sectoral initiative, collaboration out of NSERC that was launched in 2008 and which is coming to an end in March of 2011. The research outcomes of this initiative have been impressive, and I urge you to look at them in detail. But just to say, at the highest levels, through the efforts of over 120 professors, 515 students and postgrads, and close collaboration with the industry and our innovation partner of FP Innovations, Canada is now the global leader and extremely competitive in an array of new products like nanocrystals, bioactive papers, new lightweight biomaterials that feed their way into the supply chain of an incredible array of other sectors, biotextiles. We are now in the supply chain of the textile industry of India, for example, and new wood construction applications. And I'm naming just a few, and I will proudly point out we have a new brochure on innovation with a lot more success stories called Expect Us in the Unexpected, and we're happy to distribute that. To maintain our edge, though, we need to build further research from these research outcomes and get further momentum. So our partners, our colleges, our universities, ourselves are recommending the establishment of a dedicated fund of $60 million over 5 years for university and college R&D to fill that innovation pipeline. I'll close by saying that we have 2 additional recommendations in our brief. One is to improve our federal, provincial, and industrial coordination in promoting our forest practices globally. We do continue to face environmental campaigns despite the fact that we have world-class environmental credentials, and I think that we could all work together to protecting and supporting Canada's brand. The final recommendation is to urge the government to convert the SDTC Next Generation Biofuel Fund to a biorefinery fund. This fund has been around for 6 years, and this is not the first time I've requested this of this committee, but I do ask you to look at it again because another year has passed and another year where it remains unspent. If you convert it, it will be applicable to the forestry sector, the agriculture sector, the biochemical sector, the textile sector, the biofuel sector, etc., to deliver our bioeconomy potential. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We'll go to Mr. Douglas now, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. I'm Rob Douglas. I'm a director of the National Angel Capital Organization, otherwise known as NACO, and also president and co-founder of an angel investor network in southwestern Ontario. I come to you this afternoon to deliver good news, both about NACO, angel investors across Canada, and early-stage companies. Since NACO's founding in 2002, a committed group of volunteers and a small staff have shaped this not-for-profit organization into the champion of Canada's angel investing. It is Canada's only national association representing angel investors. NACO boasts over 2,000 members who receive intelligence, tools, and resources to facilitate investment into innovative early-stage companies. NACO's work supports the growth and development of a robust early-stage investor ecosystem in Canada, accelerating innovation, economic growth, competitiveness, and, of course, jobs. Who are these angel investors? Typically, they are hardworking Canadians who have been successful in business, who have both the financial resources to invest in enterprises and an interest in seeing the next generation of entrepreneurs succeed. More often than not, angel investors are driven to give back to the ecosystem in which they thrived, placing greater value on coaching and mentoring a new generation of entrepreneurs than the financial gain that they may get from these investments. Angel investors are becoming an ever-increasing force in the world of capital formation in Canada, confronting what is referred to as the capital availability gap. Angels provide private growth capital to early-stage companies before venture or institutional investors will get involved. Since 2010, available statistics indicate that over $180 million has been invested by angels in nearly 500 companies. Without this investment, many promising ventures would have failed or sought investment or relocated outside Canada. So what is NACO's challenge? Traditionally, angel capital has come from individuals who invest solo or as lone wolves, sourcing deals privately and making investment decisions on their own. But over the last 5 years, we've noticed a significant shift in this profile as more and more angels join groups to leverage the knowledge and experience of their peers. As a founder and president of the Golden Triangle Angel Network, known as GTAN, in southwestern Ontario, I have observed firsthand the tremendous power of angel investor groups. From a standing start in 2009, our organization has grown to over 100 active angel investors. These members have invested over $20 million of their own personal capital without a single request for special treatment, such as tax incentives. These members have invested in over 40 companies, coached and mentored countless entrepreneurs, and created or retained 750 identifiable jobs in our community, making GTAN one of the top 5 angel groups in Canada, according to a recent Industry Canada study. There are currently more than 30 formal angel groups across Canada, most of them NACO members. Regrettably, these visible angel groups represent less than 10% of the total angel investors in Canada. NACO's challenge today is how to organize the community of angel groups and investors to maximize the economic impact of supporting innovative early-stage companies.
1 minute.
This involves professionalizing angel activity, education, best practices, and standards. NACO is seeking $5 million of financial support over the 3-year period 2015 to 2018 to undertake a campaign to mobilize those many private investors who have not yet embraced the power of angel investing, either as individuals or as part of angel groups, and who would benefit significantly from having access to other like-minded individuals through more formal investment structures. In addition, NACO strongly supports the creation of investment vehicles which incent angels to invest and which accelerate the growth of investee companies. One such program, FedDev's Investing in Business Innovation, or IBI, has been very successful in Southern Ontario. As I'm sure you're aware, IBI provides repayable loans to companies which have received angel investment. Of particular note is that the loans are to the investee companies, not to the angel investor. This program serves as a model which could be replicated across the country with positive outcomes for both productivity and jobs. NACO likes this model and looks forward to continuing its dialogue with Citizenship and Immigration Canada, Industry Canada, and other government departments to help shape forward-looking programs which will drive economic growth and create jobs and prosperity in communities across Canada. Thank you very much for hearing me today. I look forward to answering questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Beaudry, now for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and thanks for the opportunity to present here today. My name is Charles Beaudry, and I am here as a member of the Board of Directors of the Prospectors and Developers Association of Canada, or PDAC, and as a member of the management team of a junior exploration company focused in the Abitibi region of Ontario and Quebec. I'm a geologist with about 35 years of experience in the mineral industry. PDAC is the voice of Canada's mineral exploration and development industry, representing over 10,000 members. This industry is a major driver of Canada's economy, accounting for almost 4% of GDP of Canada and employing over 400,000 workers across the country, from remote communities to large cities, and is the largest private sector employer of Aboriginal people. The industry is also important to government revenues, contributing over $70 billion in the last decade to federal and provincial governments. According to the Mining Association of Canada, Canada's mining industry plans to invest approximately $160 billion in projects over the next decade. Mineral exploration in this story is the first stage of the mineral development cycle. The purpose of this stage is to locate mineral deposits which could be economically developed. Mineral exploration is a costly and risky business, as you know. About 1 in 1,000 greenfield exploration programs result in economic discoveries, and even fewer become mines. Recent data shows that making mineral discoveries has become riskier and costlier than ever before. Since 2006, the industry has been finding less, even though it has been spending more, signaling that production could outstrip already shrinking base metal reserves. In Canada, per meter drilling costs, for example, which account for a considerable portion of discovery costs, has increased from $92 per meter in 2000 to $230 per meter today. This is because the easy-to-find deposits have been discovered, and deposits are now deeper or in more remote parts of the country. These factors have contributed to Canada's declining attractiveness as an exploration destination, and after having been the global leader in attracting exploration investment since 2002, in 2013, Canada fell to second place behind Australia. Rising cost challenges are compounded by the challenges companies face in their efforts to raise capital to finance exploration. In 2013, the value of financings decreased by 23% over 2012, which were themselves substantially below the 2011 levels. Funding for grassroots exploration in particular has been hit hard, with expenditures dropping 50% in 2013. The continuation of both of these trends may compromise the ability of the mineral industry to make the new discoveries in Canada, which means fewer new mines in the future. This is why the Prospectors Developers Association of Canada is making the following recommendations. 1, to renew the mineral exploration tax credit for an additional 3 years, and 2, to renew the Targeted Geoscience Initiative. One of the policy tools that has helped Canada become the #1 destination for mineral exploration financing has been the mineral exploration tax credit. On behalf of the mineral exploration industry, I would like to thank the committee for recognizing the importance of METC and recommending its permanency in your report, The Future We Want, Recommendations for the 2014 Budget. So PDAC is recommending the renewal of the METC for an additional 3 years. This 3-year renewal will provide longer-term stability to junior companies, enabling them to plan the financing of multi-year exploration programs and boost investor confidence. Renewal of the METC is particularly important this year for 2 reasons. First, because the industry finds itself in one of the worst financing downturns in the last 20 years. You can't explore if you can't raise money, and the METC can be a critical source of risk-tolerant capital when other sources dry up. Second, because other jurisdictions are not sitting still. This once uniquely Canadian tax policy innovation is being borrowed by our closest competitor. In May 2014, the Government of Australia announced a $100 million exploration development incentive, enhancing the attractiveness of that country to invest in. In addition to fiscal policy, the Government of Canada can also enhance Canada's competitiveness through investing in innovative public geoscience. The Targeted Geoscience Initiative is about finding new ways to explore more efficiently and establish camps where near-surface deposits have been likely found and developed. Technological, process, and methodological innovations arising out of this important initiative have already enhanced the capacity of the exploration industry to detect buried mineral deposits. The program has already improved exploration models for a number of active mineral regions and mine sites, including Canadian Malartic region near Val-d'Or, the McDonald Mines in James Bay Lowlands, and at Cameco's Millennium deposit in the Athabasca Basin of Saskatchewan. The PDAC recommends the renewal of TGI for an additional 5 years and the maintenance of the program's funding at $25 million overall. We also recommend that TGI include greater industry participation, particularly at the planning and design stages, and that enhancing discovery rates be made an explicit objective of the program. By committing to research and development programs like the TGI and innovative tax policies like METC, the Government of Canada can play a role in enhancing the competitiveness of Canada's mineral exploration industry and help our country regain its status as the #1 destination in Canada. Thank you, and I'll be available for questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Colleagues, just a couple of things, and for our guests as well, there will be bells here fairly soon. I'd like your consent, if I could, to carry on as far as we can, as close to the vote. Also, I know members like 7-minute rounds to get into more detailed discussions, but I'm recommending we do 5 minutes just to allow as many members as possible. So I will start with Mr. Cullen then, please.
Thank you to our witnesses. It's too bad we're going to be interrupted. This is an incredibly diverse and important panel that I'd like to spend an amount of time with each of you, but I'll go as quick as I can. Starting with you, Ms. Smith, there was a recent IEA report out suggesting that solar power could become the world dominant or the largest source of producing energy, supplanting carbon sources by 2045, 2050?
That's right. The IEA is predicting that because of the plunge in price in solar energy, dropped 83% in less than 5 years, that it will be, the global uptake is significant, and it will be more than 50% of electricity by 2050.
Do we have a sense of what the cost would be associated to the addition of those 3 more energy sources into the, you want to add them onto the list of accelerated capital reduction, is that right?
Yeah. It would be about $10 million for each of those 3, under 43.1 and 43.2.
Have you awareness of what the subsidy right now is to the oil sector and the oil sands right now from the federal government?
I could get back to you on that, but I think we're all aware that it's significant billions of dollars.
So north of $1 billion for oil at $91 a barrel today. You're asking for $30 million per year to add these additional technology-ready sources of energy for Canadians.
That's correct. I would also love to have a conversation about broader things that the government could do to support the clean energy sector, but this is what we're asking for today.
You mentioned targets. Does Canada have a target right now for renewable, low-impact energy?
We have a target of 90% clean electricity.
Canada does?
Yes, we do.
By when?
2020.
How are we doing?
We're at 65% clean electricity, and Quebec and Ontario do have provincial incentives. As you know, Quebec has already phased out, Ontario has already phased out coal, so that's already taken place. So there is need for additional policies to help actually shift us to reach that goal.
An argument often made from government, and I want to turn to Mr. Lampert next just to talk about water, is the reason the Prime Minister didn't show up at the UN talks on climate is we only contribute 2%, or approximately 2% of the global climate emissions right now. Other countries like China and Russia and others are contributing more, and Canada is doing enough, or I'm not sure what the rest of the argument goes like. But why does it matter that Canada, if we're only putting 2% into the global supply of greenhouse gas emissions right now, why would that matter? Why would our efforts matter globally?
Well, for quite a number of reasons. One, to actually combat climate change globally, every nation is going to need to do their fair share. Secondly, Canadians contribute significantly higher proportion of emissions per capita than others in the world. And thirdly, frankly, we have a huge opportunity here. That's what I see in front of us. There's a huge opportunity for us to diversify and actually get into the clean energy business. We have both clean electrons that we could be producing more of.
Something that would help with growth, jobs, and long-term prosperity, or something like that.
That's
for the country.
correct. And there's jurisdictions like Texas who have really gone all in and put in place policies for supporting renewable energy. Now, we think of Texas as an oil and gas producing jurisdiction. Well, frankly, they are the biggest wind supplier in the United States and second in solar. And so just to say, these places are recognizing the value of investing in the clean energy opportunity.
Mr. Lampert, your group's asking for $10 million over a number of years. Some would say that the success that COSI has had already over the last number of years is sufficient. You're bringing industry, municipalities, environment groups together. You mentioned something about a socially acceptable way. I took that phrase, developing fracking or the oil sands in a socially acceptable way with respect to water. You're from an oil company. Why would that matter to you at all? Why is water the trigger, and why is your network that you support, the Canadian Water Network, so good, or able to be so good at promoting that conversation in Canada? Why does it matter? Why does socially acceptance matter to a project?
Brief response, please.
Yeah, quite simply, water being a public shared resource, it's important that you be able to convene multiple interests to take a focus on these issues and the solutions to them. And the Canadian Water Network have developed this tremendous ability to convene diverse interests, to take science and translate it to practice in an effective manner. And we think that capacity within Canada is very important. It's also of a national scale. In other words, if you scan across Canada, issues related to water are of many different natures and types. The Canada Water Network has the capacity to be a convener wherever that type of activity is required, including fracking and including oil sands related.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cullen. Mr. Saxton, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for our witnesses for being here today. I was just reminded at the beginning of the meeting that I went to elementary school with Marin Smith, so I better start by asking Marin a question. Haven't seen her in over 30 years. It's probably close to 40 years, actually. I'm giving secrets away. Marin, can you expand on your proposal to create a residential solar energy tax credit? And I know you've focused on solar energy, but are there other sources of clean energy that one could also focus on?
Yeah, so the 3 tax credits, 2 of them focused on solar, in part because there has been good work done by the budget, and there has been credits put towards wind, biomass, and other forms of renewable energy. So today we're focusing on solar. The third one around power storage technology will actually benefit all renewable energy technologies. So we think that the package of 3 will be a piece to help support getting those off the ground.
Thank you very much. Now my next question is for Catherine Cobden. Being a member of Parliament from British Columbia, I think I should ask the Forest Products Association a question as well. Canada's forestry sector directly employs over 200,000 workers in all regions of the country, including in 200 communities that rely on the sector for at least 50% of their economic base. Now, our government has helped keep this vital industry strong with investments in the Forest Industry Transformation, or IFIT, program introduced in Budget 2010, which has been successful in enabling Canadian forestry companies to lead the world in demonstrating the viability of innovative technologies that improve efficiency, reduce environmental impacts, and create high-value products from Canada's world-class forest resources. Economic Action Plan 2014 built on this success by providing $90.4 million over 4 years starting in 2014-15 to renew the IFIT program. So my question to you is, how can the government help to build on the success of the IFIT program?
Thank you very much for the question. It's a very exciting time in the forest industry, which is what you are alluding to, and we are seeing demonstrated successes out of that IFIT program. So what we're asking for this time around is actually to fund the academic contribution to our innovation chain. The IFIT program does the commercialization and has helped us be the first in the world to take these new technologies to commercialization. But they never would have been able to get there without the academic engagement and the role of FP Innovations. So what we're really excited about is what additional ideas can come out of colleges and academics and universities done in a way that have practical, pragmatic application so we can see more IFIT projects in the future. I'm very excited by it.
Thank you very much. My next question is for the Prospectors and Developers Canada. The mining industry obviously is a very important industry for my home province of British Columbia. Can you elaborate on your proposal to enhance the Targeted Geoscience Initiative, and will doing so help create jobs across the country?
Yes, certainly. The idea behind the Targeted Geoscience Initiative is to improve our understanding of mineral deposits, how they form, and more importantly, how to find them. Because as you know, like in British Columbia, in the interior, there's really large areas where there's quite a bit of cover, and it's quite difficult to actually explore in those areas. And also in advanced or in mature mining camps, in many cases, all of the near-surface deposits have been discovered, and or you have situations where you have a lot of cover, like around Timmins, where I work, and it's actually quite difficult to explore in those environments. And the TGI is meant to actually improve our capacity and our efficiency in order to help us discover deposits undercover, at depth, and in areas that are more difficult to attain.
Thank you, Chair. How much time do I have?
30 seconds.
Okay, very quickly, my last question is for the National Angel Capital Organization. Our government has provided record support to entrepreneurs with low taxes and investments, such as the $400 million venture capital plan. How have your members benefited from the low taxes, and how have you been able to utilize the VCAP plan?
Okay, just a very brief response, Mr. Douglas, please.
I would say that our members have not necessarily benefited. It is the companies that they invest in that benefit from our angel activities. We don't look at the sort of personal gains of the individuals. That's not how we sort of rank our...
How will taxes help your members?
How will low taxes help? They always help provide incentives for people to be more engaged in our companies and work on this side of the border, as opposed to take their businesses to other jurisdictions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Saxton. We'll go to Mr. Bryson for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On September 22nd, Canada's Environment Minister told the UN that Canada is, quote, a clean energy leader. Do you agree?
No, I don't. I think that we have been very focused on our fossil-based energy systems and have not put that same kind of attention into the clean energy. So we do have a relatively clean grid compared to the rest of the world because of our endowment of hydro resources. But we could be doing much better. And I think that's my real message here today, is we could be doing significantly better. We have the renewable energy resources, and we have the innovation and the businesses that could become leaders in those technologies and services to export to this growing, booming clean energy industry.
Spoke to energy efficiency as a priority as well. The eco-energy grants that the federal government used to have that were subsequently cancelled Did they help create incentives for households to green their homes and cut their energy consumption? Were they effective?
Yeah, it was a very effective program. It had significant uptake, and it would be great to see it restored.
Thank you. The forestry industry is an example of an industry that has, a traditional industry that has greened its operations. Is there not potential to see a similar cleaner conventional energy industry, and would you be willing to partner with the fossil fuel industry to work together, seeing advancement in cleaner conventional industry, recognizing conventional energy will continue to be a significant part of global supply?
Sorry, I thought you were directing this to Catherine.
No, I'm asking you whether you would see potential in cleaner conventional energy as part of the clean mix.
Well, absolutely. We believe that fossil fuels are going to be part of the mix for a fair bit of time to come, and that we need to clean them up as much as we can. We need to reduce the carbon footprint in particular, as well as water and other environmental aspects, not only of the oil sands, which gets a lot of attention, but the growing natural gas industry, which is coming.
So, Mr. Lambert, the FCM municipalities recently stated that proposed new federal wastewater regulations will require cities to build or to rebuild 1 in 4 of the country's wastewater systems. Are municipalities receiving enough support from the federal government to finance these upgrades?
Well, just to scale the challenge for you, in 2012, the installed municipal waste treatment facilities were about $370 billion, and about an $80 billion gap exists to expand those facilities to meet future needs based on a 2012 estimate. But in that regard, the application of science to make sure that whatever form these facilities take are well designed, they're going to produce the water outcomes that we require in the most economically efficient manner, does require the application of best practice and science. And we've already been able to save municipalities well over $100 million just through the collaboration and convening of them to develop standards of treatment that are more effective.
Your proposal for infrastructure renewal and water treatment modernization, what kind of jobs potential would it have across the country? And is there potential in exportable technologies that can create different sorts of jobs and value-added jobs for young Canadians?
Well, our focus in the Canada Water Network is building the capacity amongst our professional and scientific practitioners in water. And we know that our expertise that's been developed, even so far with the water network in its current form, is very world-class. We do see it as having tremendous value to take what we learn and go international and out to other jurisdictions with it.
Okay, Ms. Smith wants to comment, and very briefly, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I meant to mention this earlier, that we've actually added up the jobs in the clean energy sector, and it's over 23,000 direct jobs in the clean energy sector. And just to compare that, there's 22,000 and change in the oil sands direct employment. So there's a significant employment in the clean energy sector now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Bryson. We'll go to Mr. Keddy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to our witnesses. And an interesting discussion so far. Ms. Smith, you used the number of 65% renewable energy being used in Canada today. That's a lower number than the last number that I heard, which was 77%. So how do we base that?
My number 65% is renewable energy in the electricity system. So we're just talking about the electricity system. I'll just search through my notes and get it for you where that stat comes from.
That's fine.
I believe it comes from Natural Resources Canada.
You can get me that later, but all the renewable energy together is greater than 65%, I'm expecting. You're saying? in the grid. And that's not counting renewable energy that we're exporting either as natural gas or as electricity to the U.S. that's still made in Canada.
So just to clarify, natural gas is a fossil fuel, so it does not
Understood,
classify
but
as renewable energy.
It's quite a bit cleaner than coal last time I checked.
It is cleaner than coal, but it is a fossil fuel.
Yep. One of the comments you made was about a solar energy program for domestic builds and commercial builds. One of the frustrations that I've seen is we've never started at the bottom of that equation. We always start at the top. You know, you go to China where there's immense building and solar energy wherever you look, and they're retrofitting the roofs on all their buildings, so on the right angle. Why? So have you folks done anything to talk to our builders so you build the pitch of your house facing the right direction so you get southern exposure, and it's the right pitch already, so when you put solar panels on that roof at some point perhaps, that it really isn't a major retrofit, number one. Number two, it's pleasing to the eye, if you will.
Exactly it. That's the recommendation in our first recommendation for the capital class allowance 43.1, 43.2 is investment to make buildings solar panel ready. And what that means is exactly what you're saying, right pitch, right angle. You might not be putting the solar panels on right now, but you actually invest when you're building the house, so it's set up.
Actually give some type of tax rebate to do that now. Like the person who's thinking they may want to use solar energy down the road, it doesn't cost them any more to change the pitch of the roof, or it costs them pennies when they're building. So to make it more aesthetically appealing to them, you know, I think you could do that in a recommendation without a budget ask, quite frankly. On the Canadian Water Network, first of all, I just want to say, you know, you guys are being smart. You've got a diverse group representing all segments of the country and all segments of the economy. It is a public resource, so we need to be fair and equitable in how we use it. One of the issues that we talk about a lot here is how we deal with public water and wastewater and sewage. And you know, for the life of me, I can't understand, and I have a bias because living in rural Canada, and like Mr. Bryson over there, you know, you dig your own well, you pay for your own septic tank, and if you do something wrong, you're shut down tomorrow, no ifs, ands, or buts, and you will spend $20,000 or $30,000 to correct that mistake. So, you know, have we looked at the end users in urban Canada and simply say to them, like, you have a responsibility here, not government?
Okay, about a minute. Brief response, please, Mr. Lambert.
Well, just to certainly agree, we need effective regulation that's properly enforced in order to protect the public interest. But that regulation also needs to be informed by sound science.
Yep.
And the Canada Water Network is helping to translate that science into new best practices that inform even better regulation going forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Mr. Caron, s'il vous plaît, 5 minutes.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Welcome to all the witnesses. Ms. Carlton, you know that in a past life I worked for a union in the forestry sector. There have been changes in attitude with respect to the industry. If you look back to when I was there 4 or 5 years ago, I could briefly go through your presentation. It was very interesting, but there's one thing that strikes me, deals with my riding. It's the third recommendation, that is to lighten the rules, to make them more flexible with respect to biocarburants and the use of forestry products that are intended for refineries. I find this very interesting because it seems to me that in the past it's pellets, granules, pellets, and the biomass that was used. Can you explain to me why your recommendation number 3 is framed the way it is? Why there's no mention of pellets or biomass? Thank you very much for your question. I will answer in English, though.
biorefinery reference is a very interesting opportunity that's not just applicable to the forest industry, but also in the ag sector and others that choose to use a bio-based feedstock. In the forest industry, we have over 80 pulp mills across our country that generate pulp for which is a high value-added product. They're very chemical-oriented, and we have a tremendous opportunity, for example, to convert those to biorefineries. But I think across the space, we're all very, our point is it's the bio-based feedstock for the bio-products, all of them, not just bioenergy or not just biochemicals, but all of them for which tomorrow's bioeconomy is going to be based. And it's that vantage point that we've chosen our wording. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Mr. Douglas, if I understand, angel investors are basically a bunch of dragon-dance panelists, but anonymous, not in front of cameras, right?
Not in front of cameras, and I would say that there is no theater, there is no drama. These are serious people who have been successful in business, generally speaking, and who are much more interested in giving back to their economy, seeing the next generation of entrepreneurs succeed as they have previously.
Merci. La question que j'aurais, si vous pouvez mettre la traduction.
If you want to use the interpretation, I have a question for you.
Merci. La question que j'aurais pour vous, en fait, c'est le gouvernement.
And that I have for you is this. That the government has made some changes with respect to venture capital. It gradually has abolished the tax credits for venture capital, and a variety of changes have been made. My question, though, is this. Given that the investors that you represent do venture capital, but highly specialized venture capital, what would be of use to you? Do you see wouldn't it be better for you to have a more general type of risk capital policy in the government that would spill off onto your investors, your angel investors?
In English, you say a more general policy for angel investors. I'm not quite understanding what you might mean by that.
I guess what I mean is that basically the government, you're representing a very specific section of capital venture in Canada. Government actually has a policy for a general capital venture fund. The Canadian fund has been created. Why should we invest specifically or why should we pay specific attention to this cross-section of capital venture industry rather than looking at capital venture as a whole?
Okay, just a very brief response, please. Yeah.
Brief response. Angel investors typically invest small amounts early stage prior to more senior venture capital wanting to become involved in deals. Therefore, we are filling a capital availability gap at a different time frame than senior venture capital. And we take people through what is often termed the valley of death. And you know, we play a different role in senior venture capital. Thank you.
Okay, merci. Colleagues, we have 5 minutes, so we're going to go vote, and then when we come back, we'll start with Mr. Allen. Please. Okay, thank you. We'll suspend. I call this meeting back to order. I would like to now move immediately to Mr. Allen for your 5-minute round, please.
Mr. Chair, and appreciate you get started. And I'm going to start with Ms. Cobden of the FPAC. I'm sure you're surprised, given the large forestry area of my riding, and also one of the large mills that actually takes advantage of the biotextile market as well. So, in your submission, where you talk about the $60 million over 5 years to expand and accelerate the university research, as you know, just in our last budget, we created the $1.5 billion Canada First Research Excellence Fund to help post-secondary research institutions leverage those key strengths. I'm just wondering, is there potentially an overlap here of these funds, or is that something that can be complementary to the ask that you have?
Thank you, Mike, for the question. And first, I do want to clarify, the ask is also to engage colleges. You all have colleges in your community that are very important to us, not just for the R&D that they do, but also as future employees, in addition to the university graduates. You know, the terms of reference for the $1.5 billion are not out yet, but absolutely every discussion we've had with the granting councils confirms that this is not duplication. They have very different, they're facilitating very different needs. So in our case, what we have before us is a great capacity of these. I've already talked about the 120 university professors that have been dedicating their life research to forest industry and have been getting funding through programs like the one that's expiring. How do we keep their interest and keep generating these ideas that are filling up the pipeline of innovation for the forest industry is what we're talking about. So, you know, maybe we'll be surprised with the terms of reference for the Excellence Fund. I would encourage, and Pierre Lapointe, who's with me here, of course, they're going to look for the big mega projects that might fit that. But this is more about maintaining and growing the capacity of colleges and universities in support of this path we're on.
Okay.
Thank you
for that. You also, in reading your 2020 report and your report card that you're putting out, which is very helpful, you're talking about 60,000 new recruits by 2020. And you're 8,000 of the way there, so take that over. That means you might get to 40 if everything goes well. But although I do see with the increased trade agreements, which is you pointed out, new trade agreements are going to be helpful, and the U.S. housing starts and that type of thing. What are the types of things the government could do? Because I've got concerns that you do that you're going to be able to get these people in your industry by 2020. What are the types of things that we can do that you would suggest to try to encourage our young graduates and our young people to get in the forest industry?
Thank you for the opportunity to address that question. It's a critical question, and we're all seized with it. I would actually underline, Mike, that part of our second ask of asking the government and to work with our provincial counterparts to promote the industry is actually a key element of that in our minds. It's not just to combat those campaigns in the that are happening. The environmentalists are taking a direct run now at the biotextile industry, but also it's important for us along the lines of attracting youth, showing off our renewability, showing off our sustainability, demonstrating that we have the best practices in the world. I don't know, I'm the mother of a teenager, and that seems to be what drives them, and like a magnet to things, and that's what we need to do. So that's a very specific answer. Ask number 2 is what we had in mind there. There's lots of other great things going on, actually, in the Department of ERSDC, and we're heavily engaged and trying our best to leverage all of that. But in particular, promoting our sector broadly is a huge opportunity.
A minute, Mr. Chair. Okay, I'd like to just switch to Mr. Beaudry for a minute, and I want to take you back to a conversation that was held on May 8, 2014 at our committee meeting, and they were talking about the mineral exploration tax credit, and the chair had quite an interesting dialogue with Lindsay Tedds at that time, and she disputed the efficacy of the METC. In fact, said that many studies have been done to say that it doesn't contribute anything. And when you look at the activity since the METC has come in, there does not appear to be any evidence that it causes any additional investing behavior as opposed to simply subsidizing investing behavior. Can you counter that, please? And if you don't have a lot of time, if your association could write us on that, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, we can certainly provide a written response, but just I would say that from my own experience, okay, I'll talk from my experience because I wasn't at that meeting, that committee meeting, but from my experience, I can tell you that during boom years, we are a cyclical industry, as you know. During boom years, the METC maybe doesn't have as much an impact, okay, in terms of the behavior. But I can tell you that like right now, okay, we're in a big deep trough. Almost as bad as the one in '99. And I would say, without solid numbers behind me, I would say that right now, if we didn't have METC, we'd be running at about a third of what we're running in terms of activity. Okay. So yeah, I mean, even my own experience, myself, I've been struggling financially because of that.
That's helpful.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Allen. Mr. Beaudry, if you do have anything further, please do submit it to the clerk. We'll ensure all members get it. We'll go now to Mr. Rankin, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all of our patient witnesses. Sorry for the delays. I wanted to start my questioning with my friend Marin Smith. Welcome to your Clean Energy Canada for being here. Welcome. Why should Ottawa play a role in supporting clean energy when the provinces are responsible for electricity?
Well, that's a really good question. I think because Canada could be a real winner in the clean energy sector, but there is very strong competition out there. As I said, there's $207 billion being invested, but those dollars go to where there's policy that supports the industry. Where there's consistent, stable policy, the money goes, the companies get built. Those companies not only build out capacity, but they create innovations, and now we have a new product to sell. So Canada is really walking in this clean energy sector while other countries are sprinting, and we think we need to catch up. The other reason is we do have climate targets that the Prime Minister committed to for 2020, and this is going to be part of the path to get us there. I did find the numbers, Mr. Keddy, of the 77%. So that comes from Environment Canada. And the difference, the 65% is renewable energy. If you add in nuclear is what gets it to the 77%. And that's called low carbon energy. But we still have a gap to get to 90%. And just to also say, Ottawa's done this before with the Wind Power Production Incentive Program and then the Eco-Energy Program for renewable energy. Ottawa does know how to do this. Ottawa also did this for other energy sectors like the oil sands, which if you remember in the 1990s, it was not a viable industry. And Ottawa provided tax breaks, infrastructure breaks, R&D, and that has been very successful and helped that industry get off the ground. And we're just saying the clean energy sector needs that if we're really truly going to be a clean energy superpower.
Leadership then, in the face of provincial responsibility, but national leadership is urgently required.
Absolutely.
You know, maybe a similar question. Why then should Canada, the federal government, subsidize, as per your recommendations, the purchase of electric vehicles?
So what we are finding is that 97% of the electric vehicles purchased in Canada were purchased in provinces where there were rebates. So the rebates work. Now, very few provinces have rebates. So that's why we're suggesting a federal rebate like the United States has, and that we should match that federal rebate. In a place like California, they have a state rebate as well as the national rebate, and now 1 in 40 cars purchased is an electric vehicle. So it's really significantly working. There's other economic spin-offs for Canada. We have an automotive industry here. We're currently producing parts, component parts for electric vehicles, which would be increased. We did produce electric vehicles. We have an automotive industry. We could again produce electric vehicles, so it would help build out that industry here as well.
My next question is for Ms. Cobden of the Forest Products Association of Canada. As another BC MP, I'm very interested in, of course, your industry. Climate change adaptation in the forest industry, is that an issue? And if so, is there a role for the federal government, perhaps in budget terms, to address that?
Yeah, actually, thank you for that question. Indeed, I would say that the forest industry in Canada is at the coalface of seeing climatic impacts in our famous unfortunate scenario of mountain pine beetle. There has been federal support for mountain pine beetle science. I don't remember which budget that came from, but obviously we need to mitigate, but I think that we also do need to continue to adapt, and that's where scientific support comes in. Incidentally, part of our ask here would include work on further pest infestation response, etc.
All right, this is perhaps, I only got a minute, and so Mr. Douglas of the National Angel Capital Organization, this is for you, and it's a very open-ended question, I'm afraid. I live in Victoria. We have a thriving high-tech sector. Innovation is happening with universities and industry. It's booming. Some say the biggest industry. Yet everybody talks about having to go to the United States to get any kind of angel support. Can you talk about what we should be doing as a country to expand our angel investment portfolio?
Just again, a brief
response. Very simply, what we are doing is what the mining industry needs to do. We need to find the angels that are hidden away in the shadows, as it were. We have only seen a fraction of those that could be investing in our companies come to the table, form groups, and we feel that we have an untapped resource here that we need to mobilize significantly. And I think we'll see a change in the direction of the flow of money.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Rankin. We'll go to Mr. Van Kesteren. This will be the last round.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all for coming. Ms. Smith, I just feel I have to go to you. We want to talk a little bit about energy. What the NDP doesn't tell, the story that isn't told, is well, Mr. Bryson and I, we went to China about I think it's about 4 years ago, and they told us at that point that they were building it was every 2 weeks a coal-powered electrical plant. And it was stated earlier that we're 2%, I think either from the NDP or yourself, that Canada emits 2% of the world's greenhouse gases. You know, the economic impact, and I'm not here to suggest, because I think it's important to point out that Canada did indeed, in 2006, $345 million was allocated for green energy, as was $238, and then $1.5 million in 2007. And I can tell you that in my province, Ontario, southwestern Ontario, that money was allocated for wind energy. And if you come down to my neck of the woods, they're all over. And you must admit that you have some challenges there as well too. For instance, we saw that unfortunate circumstance with the tailing ponds and the ducks, but I'm looking at statistics that talk about anywhere from 140,000 to 328,000 birds that are killed by wind turbines every year, and that's not very often talked about. And again, in my neck of the woods, where there is a huge migration, of course, these are birds that are, you know, they're not the sparrows and the robins and the such. These are much of the songbirds. So there's a real challenge here. Another challenge I got to tell you about is the fact that Canada is a humongous country that's cold in the winter, hot in the summer. We have huge distances to travel, and we have to stay competitive. Finally, the final point being that we are a developed country, and you know, the whole key to development is energy. So although we all want a cleaner world, we want a brighter world, I think you really need to give Canada their marks for the effort that we've made, small as we contribute to the greenhouse gases, and yet important as it is to our economy. I'm going to say one last thing. This is the last thing. You're familiar with the term PIGS, the P-I-I-G-S. That was the acronym given to those 5 countries that were pretty much bankrupt in in Europe. The P was Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, and Spain. The Portugal, on the one hand, was interesting. Much of their demise came from building roads. But did you know that Spain's basic demise was solar energy? And they will tell you that they switched over to solar, and it pretty much finished their economy. So I want you to explain to us, and I'm going to ask you one last question. I've got to ask you this question. What do you drive?
I have Toyota, a RAV. Sorry, I'm not really a car person.
So you don't drive a electric car either?
I don't yet. I'm waiting for that rebate to come online.
Well, you know, I suppose most Canadians are. And how are, just to put the square into the round hole, how do you suggest that we as a world economy continue to be productive and be competitive if we make that switch too rapidly without taking these things into consideration? Take into consideration the fact that you don't drive an electric car either.
1 minute.
A lot of questions, and just to say, I actually live in a walkable community. So I walk to my office, I walk to my kids' school, I walk to my grocery store.
No
and
relatives in other cities?
Oh no, I'm not saying I don't. I'd be the first to buy an electric vehicle when that rebate comes on. I'll be the first in line. So there's a lot of questions there. I'm going to try to answer them as quickly as I can.
Seconds, but if you can try to wrap up in that time.
China, you went to China 4 years ago. Things have changed significantly in China, and I think if I got 40 seconds, this is what I'm going to focus on. China is now the biggest investor in solar, the biggest investor in wind. They have built the most wind and are almost at the most solar. They have declared a war on pollution because of air pollution issues. They are now putting up a windmill every hour, and they are not building coal at the same rate that they used to. They have put more investment into clean energy, renewable energy electricity than fossil fuel electricity. And I think that's what Canada needs to take heed of, is it's not that people aren't using fossil fuels, and I hope you haven't heard me say here today that I think people are going to stop using fossil fuels in the near future. They're not. What they are doing is they're transitioning far more rapidly than we're taking note of to clean and renewable energy. And I'm also saying there's a huge opportunity for Canadians' business sector in that, and that we need to actually take action to get a piece of that pie. Or the world, our competitors are going there. The United States, China, and the EU are going there. They're going to develop the technologies, and we'll be buying them from them.
Okay, I'm sorry to have to cut this discussion off, but perhaps the two of you could continue this offline. I want to thank all of our panelists for being here, for presenting on our pre-budget consultations. Thank you so much. Colleagues, we will suspend for 2 minutes and bring the second panel forward. I call this meeting back to order. I want to welcome our second panel of guests to the pre-budget consultations 2014. Colleagues, we should have 4 presenters. I see 3 now. I think the 4th is on the way. First of all, we have the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association. We have the President, Marc Nantais. Welcome back to the committee. La Confédération des syndicats nationaux, le trésorier, M. Pierre Patry.
Treasurer, Mr. Pierre Patry, welcome again.
And research, we have the Executive Director, Mr. Andrew Petru. Am I pronouncing that correctly? And we are expecting the U15 group of Canadian research universities, and I believe their chair is on their way. So you will each have 5 minutes for an opening statement, and then we'll have questions from members, and we'll begin with Mr. Nantais, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all the honourable members for inviting me here today for this important discussion. I represent Chrysler, Ford, and General Motors of Canada. Collectively, our members account for approximately 60% of all vehicles produced annually in Canada. We operate 5 assembly plants and multiple engine component plants and have roughly 1,300 dealerships across the country. Why does auto manufacturing matter to Canada? I'm not going to go through my entire list, but let me highlight a couple of things if you would mind. First off, motor vehicles are the #1 manufactured good. We directly employ about 115,000 jobs, employees directly, and each of those assembly jobs creates 9 other jobs in the economy. It is this job multiplier second to no other manufacturing sector. We directly contribute over $16 billion to GDP in 2013. We uniquely have the ability to generate very high value-added jobs, and the auto trade itself accounts for nearly $100 billion in two-way trade between Canada and our primary trading partner, the United States. The Canadian manufacturing industry plays a critical role to Canada's economy through its ability to provide jobs for families, contributions to the fiscal sustainability of communities, and literally millions and millions of dollars in tax revenues to all levels of government. The industry contributes to a vibrant research, development, and innovation and commercialization presence in Canada, and CVMA member companies, auto research facilities undertake leading developments in powertrain, lightweighting research, fuel economy, cold weather testing, stationary emission reductions, as well as advanced vehicle engineering design and testing and analytical activities. Canada's competitiveness in research and development, innovation, and commercialization, emphasis on commercialization, is directly related to its competitiveness as an auto manufacturing jurisdiction of choice. Given the increasingly aggressive competition for automotive investment globally, it is critical that the government have informed discussions with industry, such as we are having today, related to our competitiveness. What is important is that we look at competitiveness challenges as connected dots and not to view those issues in isolation. Auto manufacturing and research are a continuum, and Canada needs to be competitive on both of these fronts. As such, the Automotive Investment Fund, the Scientific Research and Experimental Development credits, and the Accelerated Capital Cost Allowance need to be compared and be responsive to aggressive incentives offered by other jurisdictions as part of connecting the dots. Before we focus on the challenges, I want to highlight a couple of the advantages that Canada offers for investment. First off, Canada has a strong foundation of automotive assemblers and suppliers with proximity to North American markets. It has leading-edge automotive research and development facilities in the selected fields. The government has kept corporate tax rates low, which has been especially important. The government's support of Canada's apprenticeship system leads to a well-trained automotive workforce, including the skills trades. All of these factors lead to Canada's well-deserved reputation for quality. The government's continued support of the Canadian Automotive Partnership Council, CAPC as we call it, also provides benefit in that all 5 manufacturers here in Canada come together with labour, researchers, and levels of government to collaborate in the best interests of the industry as a whole. CAPC released an important report a year ago which examined the current global competitive environment and provided recommendations to both the public and the private sector that would better equip Canada to compete in this time of heightened global competition for automotive investment. I sent the call to action report to all of you last November, and I would encourage you to refer to that report as part of your deliberations. The Office of Automotive and Vehicle Research at the University of Windsor reported that automakers spend $17.6 billion around the world in 2013 to increase vehicle-making capacity, but virtually none of this was placed in Canada. Save and except for today's Ford announcement, which has been in the works for some time, this marks the third year in a row that Canada has missed investment decisions underlying the need to put more invigorated focus on ensuring the right incentives and policies are in place to support Canada's competitiveness for auto investment going forward. Given the intense global competition to attract these economically beneficial automotive investments, it's critical for Canada to have a competitive investment support strategy in place to secure reinvestment in its existing automotive production.
1 minute.
The Automotive Investment Fund has an important role to play. The commercialization needs to evolve into a predictable investment support that is competitive with other jurisdictions to ensure that Canada has the most competitive tools, including the magnitude and form of the AIF, which is a fully repayable loan, its tax treatment, required conditions, and speed of approval. Additionally, the AIF tax treatment, which stipulates that the repayable loan must be taxed in the year the loan is received, results in a federal incentive that is uncompetitive when compared with cash incentives offered in other jurisdictions, North America and globally. Changing the tax treatment would be virtually at no cost to the government, and the loan is currently taxed in the year received and deducted from expenses in the year is repaid. As such, the net revenue impact to government is zero, but the tax treatment does significantly reduce the benefit to industry. I would encourage the government to consider this closely as part of their deliberations. The fact that we have several large investments made outside of Canada should be a signal to Canada's Automotive Innovation Fund that it needs to evolve in order to become competitive. Making an enhanced global and competitive AIF permanent would also improve Canada's ability to compete for future investment and decisions by providing certainty, predictability, and business climate where these decisions are made. Mr. Chairman, I'll stop there, but we do have other recommendations in terms of accepting the carry proposal, which is in our submission, and a few other comments with respect to SR and ED credits and how they should also evolve in response to other programs in other jurisdictions that are getting new investment.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. Ensuite, Monsieur Patry, s'il vous plaît.
Mr. Patry, now 5 minutes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, the CSN would like to thank the Standing Committee on Finance for asking it to present its point of view in the pre-budget consultations for Budget 2015. The CSN is a labor organization made up of some 2,000 unions and bringing together some 325,000 members, workers. In this very brief presentation, I will deal with 5 themes that are of concern to us in the coming budget. In its most recent budget, the government announced that there were recurring significant surpluses as of 2015-2016, as well as a gradual reduction of the debt. This situation is due to cutbacks that have been made in public spending. But the cutbacks have meant that there has been negative repercussions for the public service, for government strategies, and also for ordinary citizens. And one need only think of associations like the CBC Radio-Canada or the federal detention centres that have been cut. They've all had an effect. For the CSN, this obsession with balancing the budget and reducing the debt is clearly the will of the government. Its intent is to reduce the role of the state. In terms of the percentage of GDP, we are at historic lows. That said, the budget forecast for the federal government also means that there will be a fiscal imbalance with the provinces. The provinces have growing needs, but there's an increasing disengagement of the government, particularly in terms of equalization. In Quebec alone, given these unilateral decisions by the government, the imposing of a cap on equalization programs has deprived the Quebec Treasury of some $8.627 billion from 2009 to 2010, and the estimated loss for the CHT will be some $10 billion for over the next 10 years. This will have a spill-off effect on social assistance and also on the social transfer. Even though you take this initiative into consideration, the envelope that's involved is well under the 1990 levels. For Quebec, it is a shortfall, an annual shortfall of some $800 million. Therefore, we are asking the federal government to do the necessary with the provinces to correct this imbalance in the fiscal imbalance, and the equalization formula should be rethought. The federal government should also increase the CHT transfers as well as social transfers. The second area of concern is creating quality jobs. While prospects for growth remain modest and fragile, the situation on the labor market is not very good. The growth of jobs is anemic, and for the past years, the majority of jobs created have been part-time. It's clear that many tax breaks that have been given over the years are not producing the expected results in terms of investment, private investment, improving productivity and growth of quality jobs. The government has to completely change the way it is thinking and have a true industrial policy that will validate and support development of the manufacturing sector, particularly in Quebec. Investment must be further made in the infrastructures that are so necessary. It is also urgent for the government to bring forward measures, serious measures, that will accelerate the transition towards a sustainable economy and that will be less GHG intensive, and then there have to be more green jobs created. The next point is the improvement of the EI program. For some years now, in coalition with other groups, the CSN has been seeking improvement to the EI program. The present situation requires a complete rebuilding of the program because it is not meeting the objectives that were set in the past. The surplus that exists should not be used to do other things. It should be used to improve the program itself, and there should not be a lowering of the contribution rate. Canada is one of the worst countries in terms of the OECD in terms of growth of unequal income for its citizens. The situation has to be one of concern for the government. It is very difficult, if you take a look at what is said by the IMF and the OECD, not to react. I need only think of the two important funds that have been useful in Quebec that have been of great help, not just to for-profit organizations, but for not-for-profit organizations. The CSN feels that the tax credit abolition for these funds, these worker funds, is something that is only detrimental. Before closing, I would like to just say a word about the tax funds and these mammoth omnibus bills that exist. We are questioning the way in which the government is functioning. Is it democratic or not when it uses omnibus bills? Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm here today representing DARE, which is the Downsview Aerospace Innovation and Research Consortia. The consortia represents 4 academic leading institutions along with 9 industry leaders who have come together with the mandate of establishing an aerospace hub at Downsview Park. DARE's mandate is a direct reflection of the Emerson Aerospace Review as cited in Recommendation 17, which states that such a hub would leverage Ontario's very best educational institutions in a unique partnership designed to develop innovation, new technologies, aid in workforce training and skills development, and participate in supply chain development activities. This hub would provide an anchor point to a proposed aerospace technology corridor between Toronto, Montreal, and across Canada to enhance the capabilities of all. DARE's mandate and the Emerson Report indicate that Canada's aerospace sector is at a turning point, and there is an action to be taken in order to ensure that Canada can continue to meet industry needs and maintain a competitive advantage in a global aerospace sector. Currently, Canada is among the leading aerospace nations in the world. Its aerospace industry is the 5th largest and the 2nd largest relative to the size of the economy. The industry generates $22 billion in annual revenue, employs a workforce of 66,000, exports 80% of its output, and is the 2nd most research-intensive industry in Canada. It includes the world's 3rd largest commercial aircraft manufacturer, Bombardier, and a wide range of global leaders. It is a strategic sector in every sense of the term. But yesterday's achievements, however, are no guarantee of tomorrow's success. The conditions that prevail over the last several decades are being replaced by new and fundamentally different global trends that are dramatically changing the competitive landscape. Examples include an industry that is set to double by 2020, but has the challenges of an aging workforce. For example, the Bombardier facility in Toronto will have a quarter of its workforce, which currently employs 4,000 people, who will be eligible for retirement within the next 5 years. Other challenges we are facing include competing global markets and a need to move small and medium enterprises up the supply chain, as future major platforms prefer to deal with large companies. DARE has proposed the development of an aerospace hub at Downsview Park as a solution to the challenges previously mentioned. The proposed hub is a place where aerospace industry and academic stakeholders can co-locate for the purpose of increased collaboration and enhanced opportunity for advanced R&D and commercialization. There are three primary building blocks of the Downsview Aerospace Hub: academic institutions, industry, and the DARE Innovation Centre. Downsview Park, under Canada Lands Company, is considered a strategic location as it is endowed with ample area for development within city limits and an existing runway, close proximity to expanding TTC and GO Transit, and a current Bombardier Aerospace presence, which is expanding to include 2 new assembly lines. The Department of National Defence, Defence Research and Development Canada are also on site. Downsview Park has a long history tied to the Canadian aerospace industry, as it houses the historic de Havilland Building. To date, the province has awarded Centennial College $26 million towards the repurposing of this historic building to develop a training facility for our future workforce. The DARE Working Group meetings have already been productive, with space and aerospace companies collaborating, and university and colleges looking at the creation of hybrid programs and research projects that will benefit multiple stakeholders. DARE has also assisted the province in promoting aerospace to potential international companies as they look for expansion into Canada. At a local level, the Downsview Hub would have a positive impact on the surrounding neighbourhoods, with several having been identified as high priority. In order for the hub to become a success and strengthen Canada's position as an aerospace leader, DARE is requesting a financial commitment from the federal government of $60 million over 5 years towards a repurposing of existing facilities at the Downsview site in order to create this hub. According to the business case written by KPMG in January of 2014, the creation of the aerospace hub at Downsview Park is projected to facilitate the development of up to 14,400 sustainable jobs and provide direct, indirect, and induced benefit of up to $2.3 billion over the next 20 years. Therefore, it is evident that the creation of the aerospace hub can provide a viable and sustainable solution to the skilled labor needs and will increase the competitive advantage in the aerospace industry for both Ontario and Canada. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We'll now hear from our last presenter. Might need some help with the name, Mr. Feridun Hamdulapur.
You almost made it. It's Feridun Hamdulapur.
Yes.
Delighted to
Welcome
be here.
on behalf of the committee. You have your 5-minute presentation.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, thank you for the opportunity to appear before the committee. I'm here as chair of Canada's U15 group of research-intensive universities, a role I fulfill in addition to my role as president of the University of Waterloo. As you may know, this is the second time our organization has appeared before the committee. The first instance was an appearance last year by my colleague Elizabeth Cannon, U15 Vice Chair and President of the University of Calgary, to advance our proposed Advantage Canada Research Excellence Fund. I will again like to thank the Government of Canada for delivering on this recommendation by way of the Canada First Research Excellence Fund in Budget 2014. Canada's U15 universities serves as a collective voice of Canada's research-intensive universities, representing $5.3 billion in university research undertaken annually in Canada. Our role is to advocate for the provision and sustainability of a robust environment for Canada's research-intensive institutions, as these universities deliver immense value for Canada through knowledge creation, innovation, and by partnering with government and industry to give Canada's economy a competitive edge in the global marketplace. The U15's intent in appearing before the committee today is not to deliver a specific ask to the panel's members. Rather, our goal is to emphasize the achievements resulting from Canada's support for our overall research and innovation ecosystem. This is the ideal venue to do so, as it is fundamental to the committee's mandate of considering how Canada can increase competitiveness through knowledge mobilization, increase the global reach of Canadian businesses, and build new national digital competitive advantages. I would like to emphasize that over the last several years, Canada's research-intensive universities have undertaken critical steps to better align our research environment with other national priorities, including government and private sector needs. We have delivered on this while steadfastly preserving our perspective that universities are knowledge creators and educational facilities first and foremost. Canada's research-intensive universities' biggest contribution to the country's innovation ecosystem and to knowledge mobilization is the development of a talented and innovative workforce. U15 institutions alone graduate more than 110,000 people annually, including more than half of Canada's masters and more than 75% of PhDs. These graduates find employment within many Fortune 500 companies, upcoming SMEs across all sectors that are on the cutting edge of developing new technologies, all levels of government, and the not-for-profit sector. Businesses turn to research-intensive universities to help them develop new products and services through faculty consulting, the use of the state-of-the-art facilities available on our campuses, and contract research. U15 institutions conduct more than 80% of private sector contracted university research in Canada. World-class research excellence is what also allows U15 institutions to create critical international networks and opportunities and to serve as national strategic assets in helping Canadian businesses to compete. Research-intensive universities develop rich international networks of students, alumni, faculty, researchers, and institutions through research collaborations and partnerships and through student, faculty, and researcher mobility. These global networks and the export of research services strengthens and spreads Canada's brand as a leading knowledge economy and can create channels for Canadian businesses to take their products and services into new markets. In conclusion, I would like to emphasize for this panel the critical role of the federal government plays in supporting the full spectrum of discovery and applied research and in enabling the development of highly qualified and competitive graduates. This robust partnership between the federal government and Canada's universities is central to Canada's economic strategy and central to any discussion of research, development, innovation, and commercialization in Canada. In the excitement generated by CIFREF, we must remember that Canada's granting councils and CFI require sustained, predictable investments to maintain this indispensable foundation for research excellence. I will conclude my comments by reiterating U15's commitment to supporting Canada's economic competitiveness through strong and extensive research partnership activity with both the private and public sectors, and through fostering a policy and funding environment conducive to innovation and knowledge mobilization. Thank you very much. Merci.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We'll begin members' questions with 5-minute rounds with Mr. Cullen, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to all our guests today. This will be a bit rapid fire, so let's go through it. There's a lot of topics at the table today. Mr. Nante, just with the possible exception, not to exclude it, of the announcement from Ford today, the thing that stood out most for me in your presentation is the last number of years that you quote from the Windsor study at the Office of Automotive and Vehicle Research that near $18 billion was invested worldwide just last year in the building and enhancing of automotive plants around the world, but none of it here in Canada. Is your contention that it is the the way our tax code works right now, and that if it were shifted, that Canada would gain greater access to this investment?
I think in very simple terms, the answer to that would be yes. One thing that I didn't get a chance to mention was the SR&ED credit system. Changes were made to that program that made it less effective than it had been previously.
Specifically, what changed? The committee is going to be looking, and this is for all our witnesses, the very specific recommendations that we forward to the government.
Correct. So the changes to the program were to reduce the credit and eliminate capital and other required expenditures from the total. Make it less of an incentive to draw and secure new research and development in Canada. For instance, the ability for large companies to exchange unused SR&ED tax credits in exchange for direct funding when used for new R&D projects would be an improvement.
So
Ideally, this would include capital assets for research and development facilities, building of new R&D facilities, and/or investment in machinery and equipment for R&D purposes.
So one of the challenges, and I want to, one more question to you then to Mr. Hendelpour about research and development, particularly from the private sector, why Canada seems to lag so consistently behind our competitors with respect to private sector research and development. And maybe Mr. Hendelpour will suggest public contributions to research and development also is to the mid or lower range of the OECD. One final question to you, Mr. Nente, around the single window option as one of your, as for somebody who's a bit of a neophyte with respect to your industry, why would that be so imperative, and why would that put us on par with places like Mexico and others?
The single window approach, like Pro-Mexico as an example, is exactly that. It's a government agency that basically works with all levels of government. It removes any sort of regulatory impediments. It coordinates the incentives that would be given as part of a package, a single package, and that would include virtually everything from cash on the table to tax incentives to infrastructure incentives. So we have in Canada.
Excuse me to interrupt, but is it between the different levels of government as
Correct.
well? It's not.
So,
okay. So
municipal, state, federal, all of these government, all these levels of government are come together under Pro-Mexico as the example. Similarly, Tennessee has done that, and they've been very successful in bringing new investment. Why? Because it's they can generate, or I should say, process applications more quickly. They respond to the company's needs, and quite frankly, they are very hungry for new investment because of the economic spin-offs that come from automotive investment.
So to that $18 billion that went globally last year, Canada, as it presents right now, makes it's a harder place to land that money simply because the investors, the company themselves, have to wade through the different levels of government offers and support and tax initiatives and translate all of that. Hence, Korean automakers, for example, are building in the U.S., they're building in Mexico, they are not building in Canada as of today.
Correct.
Okay.
And
Mr. Hendelpour, wanted to come to you with that question. I pose it as a sincere question. Why does Canada so consistently lag behind or find itself in the middle of the pack with respect to private sector R&D? Particularly, would you make any connection? There's been some billions of dollars in tax cuts made to corporate Canada over the last number of years. The previous finance minister noted that that wasn't being recycled back into research and development from those same companies that received the money in tax breaks. Is there any way that we can incentivize that as well as support programs like yours?
The question is the right question. This is one of the missing pieces that we see in this entire research ecosystem. It does exist, but it doesn't exist at the level that we believe that will really provide a very energetic research environment in Canada. One of the main reasons why we believe is a cultural issue before anything else, that the private sector will have to understand that innovation will have to be the core of their businesses. If you do not innovate, regardless of how successful the business is today, the current day, will not continue to be successful in the future. And many companies around the world private sector institutions who collaborate with universities, this is mainly the primary purpose of the collaboration, that they are in constant search for innovation and trying to find new ways, new methodologies, new products through university-based research.
Okay.
There needs to be policy changes, but nevertheless, I believe it requires a major cultural shift in Canada and private sector.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cohen.
I didn't know that I was limited by time for my question answering, so
Okay,
thank you.
yes. We're all limited in our time. It's the one constant.
Permission, sorry.
Thank you. We will...
Paid by the word. We're in
we'll go
politics.
to Mr. Adler, please. 5-minute round.
Well, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you all the witnesses for being here this afternoon. You know, we have a very unique responsibility here at the Finance Committee during these pre-budget consultations, insofar as we have to submit a number of recommendations to how to use the upcoming, which we anticipate will be an upcoming fiscal dividend. So it's very important that we are able to separate the wheat from the chaff when we submit our recommendations at that point. Now, I do want to begin with Mr. Petru, if I may. We are at a very critical crossroads in the aerospace sector here in Canada. We saw that with the Emerson report. It highlighted all of the difficulties, the challenges that we have going forward. Can you speak, first of all, and I have a number of avenues I want to go down with you, but initially, could you talk about how competitive right now the international marketplace is in the aerospace sector, and if we don't get on that train that's leaving the station now, we're going to be in a lot of trouble?
Sure. The numbers speak for themselves, and that's why we're seeing many countries come to life. And we know that it's projected that there'll be a need for 35,000 new planes, which is a value of $4.8 trillion between 2014 to 2032. And it's because of we're in the perfect storm. You have the Asian market, I'll call it, is emerging with a middle class that's demanding to travel. So we're seeing countries like China and India building massive runways to facilitate that. In the same breath, you have the U.S., whose whole fleet is becoming at end of life. So they need to replenish that fleet as well. So it's become a rush, and you're seeing countries emerge that have never been in aerospace start building hubs, Mexico being one of them, Brazil being another. Singapore has thrown a lot behind that. The UK has thrown £2 billion behind a hub. So it's seeing many of these countries start to emerge because of this demand.
We also see India and China getting on board too, I mean, which is remarkable. Also, I had a number of colleagues come back recently from the Farnborough Air Show, and they were they went out there not really, knowing what to anticipate when they got to the show, but their minds were just blown away by the level of interest on the global scene in the aerospace sector. So this is really important for us as a country. Could you talk about, you broached this a bit, the skilled workforce? We now have in Canada, and Bombardier is in the riding of York Centre, which I'm so privileged to represent, but they right now have 4,000 direct jobs and people employed at Bombardier. The problem is an aging workforce. The average age is something like 54, 55. Those people are going to retire. Where are the people going to come from to replace those people who are on the cycle of retirement? And sorry, go ahead.
The critical point is we need to skill our youth to replenish this demand. We are seeing already, one of the members of DARE with Centennial has simply listed a opportunity for potential position of 60 seats for training on just assembly, and over 350 people showed up. It is this opportunity that is there for us, but we need the key factor is the equipment and tools to do that training and have it at a high level. We must remember that Canada leads in understanding aerospace and the training of the industry because of the cost and also our knowledge. But what's happening is if we don't keep moving and keeping our students current and our graduates current, we will lose out to these emerging countries.
Putting all of these different facilities onto one site, into one hub, would go a long way to do that. And would be critical to its success.
Well, it would accelerate something we've never seen before. I mean, for example, you have a university and a college talking about hybrid programming with an industry partner on site. Imagine walking students from the first day of class into Bombardier's 4,000 employee facility watching planes being assembled. To the point where Bombardier had a plane out of service, it landed it, instead of landing in Arizona to be chopped up, they're donating it to an institution so the students have the latest in technologies. So it would create such a micro ecosystem that would accelerate productivity on every level we've never seen before.
How critical is this to the success of Canada's future aerospace sector? And what does it mean for our national economy? I mean, you mentioned 80% of the product right now that is produced is exported?
I think it's make or break. If we do not expedite the opportunity for this hub to come together
now,
yes, then we're going to be looking in the mirror going, we missed out on this incredible opportunity. The opportunity is now.
Thank you, Mr. Petru. Thank you, Mr. Adler. Over to Mr. Bryson for up to 5 minutes, please.
I'd like to begin with Mr. Hamdul Apper. Your proposal and presentation, you discussed some of the challenges from a funding perspective in terms of research. Granting councils, federal funding for the tri-councils is not keeping up with inflation in recent years. Accounting for inflation, SHRC funding has dropped by more than 10% since 2007. NSERC is down 6.4%, again accounting for inflation. And CIHR is down 7.5%. What's the impact of these cuts on the ground for the research community? And what kind of trade-offs are your members making when it comes to research and innovation to account for that?
While we are accounting for innovation, we also recognize that our economy has gone through a major crisis, and we were overall at universities, I wouldn't say extremely pleased, but comfortable the fact that our research grants or grants from the tri-councils did not experience a major cuts. There are, however, we're looking at the entire continuous system, and in this system there are emerging elements that are making our researchers excited, like the Bantings and Canada Excellence Research Funds and other initiatives that when we look at the trajectory, I think our researchers at universities, they are still quite optimistic that the research environment is in an upward trajectory.
What do you see as the big gaps in Canada's digital infrastructure?
Sorry?
What do you see as the biggest gaps to be addressed in Canada's digital infrastructure?
Our biggest gap right now is our focus for lack of investment in that area, not just monetary investment, but our universities also investment in terms of our resources and talent investment. So this is what we need to bring our collectively heads together to ensure that we are allocating enough resources and providing the kind of environment that gap will close very, very fast.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nante, it's nice to see you back at the committee, and we recognize the incredible importance of the automotive sector to our economy. What are the best programs that you've seen in terms of examples of government, federal government leadership in terms of helping the auto sector create jobs in Canada? Just a couple examples of what have you seen as the best practices from the past and that have worked in creating jobs here in Canada, federal government-led?
Well, I'll give you three and then one proposed. First off is the Automotive Investment Fund, and certainly the top up of that fund was extremely important. Certainly we wouldn't be where we are right now if it wasn't for that fund, and as well as SR&ED, as well as the accelerated capital cost allowance. These are all things which were very positive in terms of moving new investment along. There's now the CARI proposal, the Canadian Automotive Research Institute proposal, and the reason why we were so supportive of this proposal is because while other parts of the system deal with basic research or pure research, the key thing, and this is why other jurisdictions are getting so much of the new investment, is that they're responding to industry's needs on the innovation, product development, and commercialization side. This is something where we lack, and it's what we call the valley of death. I heard that earlier today. It's that valley of death that is being filled by other jurisdictions and the programs that they're putting in place. That's what's really critical here. And that's what they do that because they're going to keep the jobs there. And it's important, particularly at our critical juncture where we've got new GHG regulations for vehicles. These are technology forcing. There's going to be no single technology pathway. There's going to be multiple pathways. Innovation is going to take us there, and this is a program that can be very helpful.
So the SHRED program was very important to your sector, and it would be a good idea to bring it back and address some of the issues with it, but to bring it back.
These are programs in response to what other jurisdictions are doing, need to evolve. You know, some changes were made to the SR&ED program that actually diminish the value of the program to our companies. That needs to be addressed. The EIF fund, the money is very helpful, but it needs to evolve in response to what other jurisdictions are doing as well. Those are the key things here. It's evolving and be responsive to what other jurisdictions are doing to attract new investment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bryson. We'll go to Mr. Van Kesteren, please.
Thank you all for coming. Mark, I want to keep on going with you. I want to talk about some other good things. Good news coming out of Ford today, actually. Great news. Ford's an interesting company. As you know, I'm in the automotive industry in a past life, and I remember the old Fords. And what they did is just nothing short of spectacular in a short period of time, just creating a whole new line and being competitive at the world stage. I understand this correctly. Ford, the plant in Brampton, I believe it's in Brampton, the one we're talking about with 1,000 workers, will be able to export cars from Canada into other jurisdictions other than North America. Am I right there?
It's Oakville Ford plant, and
Oakville, pardon me.
The key thing with new investment mandate and product mandate is to have a global platform so that we can actually export from Canada. Yes, our companies generally we build where we sell, but you know, the idea now is to maximize capacity utilization, find global mandates, and export product from Canada.
Okay.
On that note.
Sorry, Mr. Van Kesteren, just colleagues, we do have bells for 30 minutes. Can I assume consent of the committee to go for another 15 minutes or 20 minutes? No, he has 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. Then yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. He's
So
actually got
on
4
that note,
minutes left.
the European trade unions is a darn good thing. It's going to open up some. Would you agree?
Support of the CETA agreement. Why? Because one of the key aspects is that it puts a placeholder in there that recognizes the integration of the industry, and as and when the EU-US program or agreement comes forward, we will be able to accumulate content, which is important for the rules of origin. If we can't meet the rules of origin requirements, we're dead in the water. We can't benefit.
On that note, because I remember having come here in 2006, the auto industry was interested in making some changes. There were some things that just weren't right. Harmonization was one of them. We've managed to accomplish that. That must be a great help for the auto industry.
Well, Canada-US harmonization is the primary.
Yep.
And we have global forums in which we're going to look at global harmonization.
So that's next.
Yeah.
Bridge to the United States. We heard from all the cross-border work that was being done between plants. That was just critical. Another great advancement for the auto industry.
And we just got to get the other side of that.
Yeah, and we're well on the way there. You mentioned the investment fund, and I can just rattle some of those off. I pulled them up. There was $80 million to Ford in their engine plant. That was part of that. Linamar received $55 million in AIF funding. Toyota, $70 million, and then Magma, $22 million, and Toyota, $17 million again. So that money was being used by these industries to help make better cars, and the result was a stronger automotive industry here in Canada.
Mr. Van Kesteren, if I could say, though, we are now at the next cycle. So decisions have to be made now for the next round of investment. And we've seen 17 new investments go into Mexico as an example.
And I heard that. But what are you suggesting that we have to start to bribe these companies to stay?
I'm sorry?
Do we have to start to bribe these companies to stay? Do we have to offer them money? Do we have to? Because we are doing these things. We're doing, because I remember sitting here and your group coming and other groups coming, and you needed the harmonization, you needed the bridge, you needed the investment fund. What you're saying the next? Can you maybe explain that to me?
There's a couple of key things here. I mean, those loans took us to where we are at now. We are in a sort of a 3 to 5 year cycle on new investments. We are there now. We should have had, quite frankly, some of the investments that have gone to the southern United States and Mexico.
So what's happening in the States? Why are they
winning?
So
they are putting bigger packages together. They're putting packages together that get rid of all of the administrative burden. They're making it very easy, and they're very timely. because that's the key thing here, is the speed at which the decisions are being made, and therefore the speed at which the applications for these incentives are being granted.
But
Key elements.
$4.1 billion went into the Detroit 2. I guess Ford was, give these guys credit, but Chrysler and General Motors got $4.1 billion.
Yeah.
What's happening with that? Why wouldn't that be the staying power to keep those companies?
Just a very brief response to that, please.
Well, it's the investment cycle and new product cycle. And now because the competition is so great in other jurisdictions, the next round of investments has to be that much more competitive, and we have to be not just competitive, but we got to create an edge to attract that investment away from those jurisdictions. We'll talk some more.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Van Kesteren. Mr. Caron, s'il vous plaît.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. I'll put my question to Mr. Patry. You haven't had many questions so far. I'd like to start off with employment insurance. You know that the government had decided to start a reform of employment insurance in 2012 in eastern Quebec, in my area. We've felt the effects of this reform, particularly in our region, as I said, where the economy is largely made up of seasonal work. I'd like to know what is the impact of the consequences of this reform of employment insurance, because when the question is put to the government in the House, the answer is that accessibility has not been cut back. People still have access to the program, as was previously the case. There are certainly regions in Quebec where the impact was extremely significant in eastern Quebec, and I would also say that this is true in the Maritimes, where there are a great many seasonal workers have been required to accept lower wages within a radius of 100 kilometers. And there's also been a significant impact on the arbitration process that has been cut up, so to speak. People who decide to challenge decisions that are not in their favor, this takes up a lot more time. People don't have any income, and of course this is very difficult for people who are in this situation. The replacement of arbitration tribunals, there are also other effects. So in your opinion, the reform of employment insurance and the secondary action that has been taken, such as the abolition of arbitral councils, has a negative effect. Yes, it has a negative effect on access to the employment system, but it's also had a negative impact in eastern Quebec because it's money that is no longer in circulation. And I'm thinking particularly of the Gaspé Peninsula, which is experiencing very extreme difficulties because of the very high unemployment rate. This leads me to my second question. We know that $57 billion were taken from the employment insurance and put in general revenue. The government has just announced a measure that would have the effect on businesses. That is, that those that are paying under $15 million in benefits will see a decrease in their premiums. The Liberal Party goes even farther and is asking for a reduction in premiums for all businesses. And this would also affect then the premiums to employment insurance. I'd like to know what your opinion is of this use of premiums. What we are saying is that if there is a surplus in the employment fund, it should be used to improve the system. I'm not aware of any insurance system in the world where people pay premiums, but when they find themselves in a situation where they require assistance, only 40% of the people do have access to it. And the income replacement has been decreased. 60% of the maximum insurable earnings. We think that we have to go back to at least 60%, and that the maximum insurable earnings have to be increased. In the case of employment insurance, we must realize that this is money that comes from workers, it comes from the companies, and they should be responsible for managing this fund, and it should not be the type of system that we now have in place. So what you are saying that if there is a surplus in the present employment insurance fund, which the government expects to occur next year, these surpluses could only be used to give an incentive to the creation of jobs in small businesses or in businesses, but they should be used mainly in order to improve accessibility that has decreased as a result of the reform. Certainly, because this is the role of the Employment Insurance Fund. What we are saying is that the government has other levers in order to support economic development. I'm thinking, for example, of workers' funds. In the previous budget, there will be a gradual phase-out of tax credits over a 3-year period. This will have an effect on the Solidarity Fund in Quebec. That's $10 billion. And our research indicates that for a given year, the tax expenditures in tax credits for people, for example, who buy shares in workers' funds. This has a very significant effect for the two levels of government, the federal and provincial government. So it certainly would not be a good choice for economic development, nor would it be a good choice for government income or revenue.
The next round is the chair. I want to, first of all, I want to actually commend and compliment the U15 for their proposal last year that they presented to this committee and was put forward in the budget. I was very pleased to see that strong support for research and development in last year's budget. So I want to, at the outset, I do want to commend your organization for all the good work that it does on the public policy basis. In terms of my questions, I wanted to follow up with Mr. Nante on some of the questions that Mr. Van Kesteren was asking. He and I were involved in the industry committee back in 2007, and Mark, you will remember this well, where the committee unanimously recommended changing accelerated capital cost allowance for the manufacturing sector. We recommended that in February of 2007. Jim Flaherty put that in the budget just a month later in March of 2007, but it's been in sort of a 2 years and it keeps getting renewed on a 2-year basis. I know the industry generally would like to see it done on a more permanent basis, but what I wanted you to comment on, Mr. Nante, is a lot of it is Canada puts accelerated capital cost allowance in some ways to compete with particularly our American counterparts who actually have better depreciation rates on an ongoing basis. So can you comment generally, would it be a better approach for the government to actually look at a comparison between depreciation rates in all sorts of sectors and look to harmonize, for lack of a better word, between ourselves and the American counterparts on depreciating capital?
Well, certainly in respect to the ACCA and the counterpart program in the United States, there are differences, and the U.S. program generally is a little more, there's more latitude, I think, some different methods of calculations and so forth, but they include things that we don't include in Canada. So I think it would make sense to at least benchmark that program, our program, with their program. I mean, things like regulatory harmonization, these are very good initiatives in terms of our competitiveness. But it could extend to programs like that where we benchmark not just SR, the ACCA, but the AIF in response to what other jurisdictions do, and as well as SR and DED. These are all things that would benefit if we did some benchmarking.
Now, I should know this, but I don't. But has your industry done a comparison between, for instance, the two countries on capital depreciation and other measures in terms of showing the competitiveness between the two jurisdictions?
Actually, the auto industry hasn't, but the Canadian manufacturers and exporters did. Yeah. I believe it was last November. And I'm sure we can make that report available to you because it is a very good report. It does give a direct comparison of those programs.
Okay, I appreciate that. I wanted to follow up then on the Canadian Automotive Research Institute. This is something I believe Peter Fries from Windsor has worked on and is advocating as well. And I did cut you off before you could finish your opening statement. So I wonder if you wanted to expand on that and explain to the committee why you believe that's necessary.
I very much appreciate that opportunity. We are faced, as I said, with landmark regulations for greenhouse gas emissions reductions, and it's going to take a multiple technology pathway. They're technology forcing. And certainly in the United States, for instance, there are programs in place that focus specifically on not just sort of the basic or pure research side of universities, but also, as I said, the innovation and product development, new product development, and commercialization. And that's where things tend to fall apart That's the valley of death that we refer to. This is why it's so important to help manufacturers do that in Canada. Our supply chain and so forth. Most of that innovation comes out of our supply chain. We can do that, acquire that in Canada, and we will have it stay in Canada. That's where the real value add is going to happen here. So the Kerry proposal is not duplicative any way with any other programs in that technology readiness chain or continuum, but it does address a very critical part of what is necessary to attract that investment in Canada.
I appreciate that. I'm bumping up against my own time, so I'm going to move on to Mr. Rankin, please.
I'm going to ask Mr. Caron to speak.
Okay, Mr. Caron, encore.
Et je partage mon temps avec M. Collin.
I'll share my time with Mr. Cullen. I asked a question to Mr. Patry. There was a question that was asked in the House today. The report of the Parliamentary Secretary referred to it. That is, the federal financial situation is quite satisfactory, but that's not the case for the provinces. Obviously, the federal government's decision to reduce the federal health transfer and to change the formula for having access to those funds will dramatically affect the provinces, and that may be reflected in the parliament when the government comes to face the people. Would you agree with that statement by the Parliamentary Budgetary Officer? I read it in the headlines today. Well, the Parliamentary Budget Director made those comments, but I can say this, particularly those cuts that were done in terms of transfers to the provinces, in terms of equalization. Well, the federal government has, over 2007-2008, tried to find a way to come to grips with the fiscal imbalance, but there was a real effect that occurred. What we have seen since that time is that they have reviewed programs in the area of health, social programs, and equalization. And now the fiscal dimension for 2007-2008 has had an effect. And you know, the demographics, the aging population will have an enormous effect on all of this. The situation of the federal government is good. Its debt will be about 25%, but 10 years ago it was some 68%. So the position of the federal government is increasingly good, but it's relying on the provinces to deal with the fiscal imbalance.
R&D and the cultural shift that you spoke about, Mr. Handel-Poor, there's I've been reading quite a bit about this and looking at a great read, Startup Nation, talking about the Israeli progress in innovation and technology, and very specifically, not just the entrepreneurial spirit, but also the role of government. You've talked about the cultural shift required within the private sector, because we've actually stagnated or gone down with respect to our competing competitors, broadly speaking, as nation states. 15 out of 16, the Conference Board of Canada said last year, in terms of private sector R&D. But we've also slipped in public sector. And the role of government has also shifted. I'm questioning this, if you have any, and maybe Mr. Nente as well, because your industry is heavily involved, and Mr. Petru, if you wanted to come in as well, that whether it's aerospace or the broad R&D sector or auto specifically, that the cultural shift that's gone on has generally been to lower the tax rate for most companies operating in Canada significantly over the last 15 years, and then there'd be a rollback into the R&D. But if the conference board is saying we're 15 out of 16 in private sector investment, my question is, if it's not working right now, and all R&D competitiveness comparisons for Canada in aerospace, in auto, and generally in R&D say that we're lagging behind, aside from just a cultural shift, do you have any specific suggestions and recommendations that you can make to the committee for us to consider making to government to shift this culture? Does government's role have to make a difference, have to change the way we approach R&D in the country? Let me start with that specific question.
Well, as you can appreciate, this is a very broad subject. If I could just confine it within our research-intensive universities mandate, more and more investment in fundamental basic research is absolutely the way to get this started.
About basic research, there's been a general bias in the last couple of years towards commercialized research, that if research can't be commercialized, we don't invest. When you talk basic, that's a different thing, is it not?
I make this word bold and underline it several times because without investment in basic research, there could be no commercialization. I do not differentiate the research as basic, applied, commercializable, but we have to work that level. A good example is we're talking about the automotive industry and fossil fuel dependency. The only way we can get ahead of this is to invest in energy storage systems, which requires materials. So the only way Canada can be a leader is, in this subject is to invest in basically nanomaterials, and from that basic research there will be hundreds of leadership type of commercialization opportunities for us. But that is the level we need to start at. And this is exactly the subject. I had lunch with Israel's Minister of Science and Technology yesterday in Toronto, and this was the subject. How do we support institutions at a level that their research will be transformative, instead of trying to do the same thing with hundreds of others? And this is the differentiation that the U15 research-intensive universities are trying to bring forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cullen. I want to thank our guests for being here this afternoon. Merci beaucoup à tous. Thank you so much for your input into our pre-budget consultations 2014. Thank you.